Supervisor Strebe, would you lead us, please?
Pledge allegiance
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for a moment of silence. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Supervisor Grieco. Absent. Supervisor Stark.
Here.
Supervisor Morone. Supervisor Wheeler.
Here.
Supervisor Chayero.
Here.
Supervisor Vanessa.
Here.
Supervisor Allen.
Here.
Supervisor Sullivan.
Here.
Supervisor Strebe.
Here.
Supervisor Paddington.
Here.
Supervisor Quackenbush.
Present.
Supervisor Radikowski.
Here.
Supervisor Sweet.
Present.
Supervisor Fair.
Here.
Supervisor Stagliano.
Here. Public comment. Any further public comment?
Mr. Chairman, Joey Manuel, City of Amsterdam, Coolidge Road. Just like to extend some of the comments that were made during the public hearing. And having spoken to Butch Grieco, my supervisor in the First Ward, and also conversations with Ron Barone, they unfairly were put into different circles or different situations and or different media clips that may have been a little prejudging. And I know as a resident of the First Ward in the city that I know they didn't have any personal input into those allegations, and it's too bad that their names had to be put into that as fodder to this whole situation. And I wish everybody well with their votes tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Ori Hacker, and I'm sorry I wasn't here for the earlier part of the public comment. I was on the Charter Commission, and I'd like to urge the Board of Supervisors to think about the appearance of impartiality. I think it's as important as any of the other practical considerations. I know that we on the Charter work very hard to gain the public's trust. And we'd like to keep that by keeping up an appearance of impartiality in drawing the lines for the legislative districts. Thank you very much.
Anybody else? Hearing none. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm Ken Major. I also live in the First Ward in Amsterdam. This is my first time at the Board of Supervisors meeting, and I just want to start by saying I have a lot of respect for all of you and all the hard work that you put in serving us voters, and I just wanted to echo some of the same sentiments that have already been said, that I really would hope that a spirit of impartiality and nonpartisanship would take place when we be drawing these district lines. I know some of you may know that I helped during the past election passing out literature and answering any questions to help get this new charter passed, because I believe that it was going to be for the good of all the citizens in Montgomery County, and that it was in a spirit of nonpartisanship. And so that's basically my sentiment, and I wish you all the best in your vote. Thank you.
Any more? Hearing none. Close public comment. We have a motion to approve the minutes from last meeting. On Barone, on Vanessa. Discussion, changes, corrections. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Minutes are approved. We have a motion to approve budgetary transfers. Herb Allen, Supervisor Wheeler. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Approved. Unfinished business? There is none. New business, resolutions. First up's resolution number 8. Resolution amending the 2013 operating budget, tourism promotion, I Love New York matching funds program, economic development and planning, sponsored by Vanessa, seconded by Strebe. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Is passed. Resolution number 9 is resolution amending 2013 operating budget, Montgomery County Flood Mitigation Grant Program Award, Economic Development and Planning, sponsored by DeMeza, seconded by Coddington. Discussion. Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Is passed. Resolution number 10 is a resolution appointing member of Montgomery County Agricultural and Farmland Protection Board, Economic Development and Planning, sponsored by DeMeza, seconded by Reshkowski. Discussion. I don't believe we have any names, other than what you have that's already on the committee. Ken?
Chair, we reached out to these three active members who served their expiring, and they all agreed to take part and serve on the board again.
So you want to put the same three back in?
That'd be Mike Cole, Gerald Douglas, and Robert Harris,
I'll make that motion.
Second.
seconded by Supervisor Wheeler. On the amendment, discussion? All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? On the resolution as amended, discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Resolution's adopted. Resolution number 11, resolution appointing members Economic Development Advisory Committee, Agriculture, Economic Development and Planning, sponsored by DeMeza, seconded by Reshkowski. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Resolution is adopted. Resolution number 12, resolution amending 2013 operating budget, Montgomery County Local Road Efficiency Plan, Economic Development and Planning, sponsored by Reshkowski, seconded by Barone. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Resolution is adopted. Resolution number 13 is a resolution authorizing chairman to sign agreement for excess workers' compensation coverage personnel, sponsored by Strebe, seconded by DeMeza. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Resolution is adopted. Resolution number 14, resolution amending 2013 budget, 2011 flood disasters, emergency management, sponsored by Sweet, seconded by Strebe. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Resolution is adopted. Resolution number 15, resolution amending 2013 operating budget, carryover grants, New York State Office of Homeland Security, 2010, 2010 grant emergency management, sponsored by DeMeza, seconded by Stark. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Resolution is adopted. Resolution number 16, resolution amending 2013 operating budget, New York State Office of Homeland Security, SHSP, 2012 grant, emergency management, sponsored by Sweet, seconded by Chiara. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Resolution is adopted. Resolution number 17, resolution approving auctioneering services agreement, county-owned real property sale, treasurer, sponsored by Chiara, seconded by Sweet. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Resolution is adopted. Resolution number 18, resolution delegating erroneous assessment correction approval authority to auditing committee, real property tax service, sponsored by Stagliano, seconded by Sweet. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Resolution is adopted. Resolution number 19, resolution authorizing chairman to sign maintenance agreement for ESRI software, real property, sponsored by Chiara, seconded by Allen. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Resolution is adopted. Resolution number 20, resolution authorizing chairman to sign agreements with Montgomery County Soil and Water Conservation District Board of Supervisors, sponsored by DeMeza, seconded by Strebe. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Resolution is adopted. Resolution number 21, resolution authorizing chairman to sign agreement, Cornell Cooperative Extension Services Board of Supervisors, sponsored by DeMeza, seconded by Coddington. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Resolution is adopted. Resolution number 22 is a resolution authorizing chairman to sign agreement, Montgomery County Office for Aging, Board of Supervisors, sponsored by Quackenbush, seconded by DeMeza. Discussion. Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Resolution is adopted. Resolution number 23, resolution appointing member of Montgomery County Sanitary Sewer District Number 1 Board of Directors. Resolution is sponsored by Rezkowski, seconded by Barone. Discussion. Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Resolution is adopted. Resolution number 24, resolution appointing Director of Youth Bureau, ATI Veterans Services Board of Supervisors, sponsored by DeMeza, seconded by Strebe.
Full board.
Full board.
Before you do that, I would like to make an amendment to include the Stop DWI budgetary lines for the coordinator and the clerk typist. And I want to take the coordinator from a salary of $12,730 down to $9,545 and increase the clerk typist from $3,185 to $6,370. And the reason for that is I have appointed Jeff Smith as the Stop DWI coordinator. I think he'll work well with Ms. Rava, and I've discussed it with them both this morning. So a second to that, Tom DeMeza. Discussion? So that's the reason for that budgetary move. I was considering suspending the rules and doing a separate resolution, but considering the business that's on the agenda tonight, I didn't think it was a good idea to suspend the rules. So, discussion on the amendment. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Okay, resolution as adopted, or as amended, I'm
Full
sorry.
board.
Full board?
Full board.
Full board. Congratulations. Okay. Next up, resolution number 25, resolution approving abstract of audited claims, Board of Supervisors, sponsored by Sweet, seconded by Thayer. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Resolution is adopted. Next up, resolution number 26, resolution adopting local law number 1 of 2013, local law establishing legislative districts based on the 2010 census, sponsored by Coddington, seconded by Allen. Discussion.
Okay,
Supervisor Barone.
Chair, with all the baloney that's going on here and everybody, I would suggest tabling this and going back to the respective boards, not our committee, because the committee's out of it. There's no more committee here. The only thing that's left is the Board of Supervisors to make the decision. I think we ought to sit down with Doug Green, Kenny, and go over this, review it, and do it once and final for all, so we get rid of all this other baloney that's going on. Thanks, Chair.
You're welcome. Supervisor DeMeza.
We need a second.
I'm sorry, he did make a motion to table. It went over the top of my head. Do we have a second to table that?
Will. Yeah.
Supervisor Wheeler. On the motion to table. Roll call, please.
Supervisor Barone. Supervisor Wheeler.
Yes.
Supervisor Trier.
No.
Supervisor DeMeza.
Yes.
Supervisor Allen. Supervisor Sullivan.
No.
Supervisor Strebe.
No.
Supervisor Coddington.
No.
Supervisor Quackenbush.
Yes.
Supervisor Radzikowski.
No.
Supervisor Sweet.
Yes.
Chairman Thayer.
Yes.
Supervisor Stagliano.
No.
Supervisor Stark.
No.
The motion to table has failed.
Further discussion. Supervisor DeMessa.
Chair, during the month, we received a few emails, and in those emails, there was a couple of changes. The one change that did propose taking Brookside Avenue, apparently I was under the impression that that portion of Brookside Avenue basically was in an election district. Is that right, Terry?
Yeah, I believe you're correct. If you're talking the switch, but yeah, it's in the.
Yeah, it's the part that brought Brookside Avenue down from, I think, Line Street all the way down to Wallen. Okay? So, that being said, I mean, that was something that was done by yourself and probably Doug Green and Penny, correct? You guys worked on that in conjunction to figure out what the best scenario would be for the election districts without disrupting the process of the ballots?
Well, not necessarily Mr. Rose.
Okay, so
There was the deputy,
Doug was involved.
right, and the deputy commissioner from the side himself.
Okay, so that is what is really, that's what's being proposed, but we don't have a description of that tonight, correct?
That's correct.
The description we have basically is something that Mr. Stark is proposing, only the certain areas, but again, I think we gave you direction at one of the committee meetings, you and yourself and, or you and Doug Green, to take a look at these and come up with the best scenario would be for the election districts so that it would make the process a lot easier during elections. And that being said, I think the one that you sent out, again, there was nothing intended to take one person out of a district and put another person in a district or to stop two candidates from running against each other. It was it was basically done to protect the election district.
Yes, that would be correct.
So I thought that was what was going to be on the table tonight, because that's what came from, that is what came from the planning board, or the planning division, Doug Green, and I thought that's what we were going to vote on tonight, because we did give you that direction. So to go back and not include that, I think that would be really problematic, not only for your office, but for the election process. So that's the one I would like to see on the table tonight. It wasn't that much of a change. It didn't include, it did include putting districts where they belong and trying to make them all one district as far as election districts go. And I thought it was the best way to go. The one that's being proposed by Mr. Stark tonight doesn't take that into consideration. And apparently no work was done with the Board of Elections to come up with his description. Why, I don't know. Because I guess they want to have their own names on these documents that they proposed them and they're rushing them through. So my plan would be to go with what Terry came up with and what Doug came up with, because that's the plan that we charged them with to come up with. So, thank you.
Okay, I've got Supervisor Stark next, and before you start, I'd like to say something. It bothers me somewhat that we're discussing this resolution, and I'm not sure that anybody knows exactly what the districts are that are spelled out on the resolution.
I'll pass it around.
That's the biggest problem that I have with it, that we had conversation in committee that there were going to be 28 people affected, and so the line was going to be moved to try to correct a couple of small areas, and then it was discovered that the Board of Elections didn't have input into the map, and so from there, it was charged to the Planning Department and the Board of Elections to try to correct the issues that may have been with the map concerning election districts as well as legislative districts. The resolution that you have before you does not, and I repeat, does not have the language for those corrections. This is the original language for the original map. So if you're gonna vote on something tonight, I certainly hope that we're completely clear as to exactly what we're voting on. Because I would hate to see us pass a resolution and create districts that are absolutely nowhere near what any of us thought they were. So with that, I will yield the floor to Supervisor Stark.
All right, so I want to just correct a few things. First, the resolution that you have in front of you, with the exception of the red changes, is the absolute resolution that was advertised for tonight's meeting for the local law. And it has the description in it for the change of 28 households that were changed. Those maps were submitted more than a couple of weeks ago, far before, in fact, it was the night of the committee meeting. And just so you know, to what the charge was. I went back to review that committee meeting, and the charge is to go back, look at, and make the election districts make sense, because there was one election district that had 5 to 8 households in it, and that was very small. And so we decided to send it back to the Board of Elections to review it for election districts. What happened then is, for some reason, instead of using the current boundaries of the city wards, the proposed boundaries from 2010 were used. These were the boundaries that were rejected by the city council at that time, and there was a lot of discussion. They didn't like them. There was some charges leveled that they were poorly drafted. There's no reason to believe that these wards are going to change anytime soon, at least not to those boundaries. So the local law that was advertised used the boundaries for the legislative districts of the current city wards. Now, it's been said that they've been moved around to look at different ways to save money. Moving the 116, and by the way, these changes are not mine, all right? These are the changes that I agree with that were put forth by Doug Green and Terry Smith. So if you looked at the resolution that the memo that I sent, on the first memo, and it's in front of you, I have them numbered, the ones that do the job. So on change 1, that's on page 1 of this language that was advertised, and that change 1 is in red. That would be numbered change 1. That's the legal description for moving 3 residents of the village of Fort Plain, District 2, District 1. We agree with those changes. Change 4. That's on the second page. Change 5. This would be an amendment, yes. I'll get there.
Talking about it, it's not a movement.
We're talking about whether it's accurate.
You gotta talk
Should be
about-
talking about the one that's on
You
the.
gotta be talking about the one,
Right.
point of order.
We'll change that. This is the document that was advertised without the red, all right? Going back and looking at the committee meeting, they were charged with looking at the election districts. The election districts, moving 116 or moving 2,000 are the exact same election districts, all right? They basically, the same number. It saves the same amount, $5,500. In fact, in the big change that was the 2,000, the 1,900 and change, if you look at that districts, there's 2 districts that were created, have 14 and 18 people in it. Where, just looking at these other changes that were, these first 5 changes, if you look at those, it basically has the smallest district is 75, and the largest is like 1,050. So if money and size and smallness is a consideration, then what was being proposed in the election districts are not right. Therefore, you know, we're running out of time. Has nothing to do with maps that I've drawn. And the Board of Elections may likely next month decide that they're going to move up the primary process to June, which means your petitioning process will start in April. We owe it to people who are going to run, maybe people who are not supervisors, know what legislative districts they are. I just want to say one thing is, because I think some people took out of context what was printed in the paper. No time, either in the Recorder or the Gazette, that I ever accused Supervisor Barone or Supervisor Rico of putting pressure on anyone. They got that impression. I want to issue a public apology to both of them. That was not my intent. That is not what I suggested. If you read those articles, I said I was sure that these legislative districts were drawn on their own with different boundaries, different ward boundaries that were not adopted. Therefore, I would make an amendment tonight that we adopt the language that was proposed, that was advertised, with these 5 changes in the beginning here, which clearly does the job. It has the same amount of districts. It saves the same amount of money. It uses the current ward boundaries instead of proposed that will never, ever probably come to fruition. And quite frankly, we can't worry about what the city of Amsterdam is going to do in the future. You know, they could propose tomorrow to change all the wards drastically, and we might have to come up with 30 different election districts. That isn't our charge. We have no control over that. So I'd be looking to make the changes in red on this document that coincide with these changes that clearly everybody have had now for about 2 weeks. I'd look for a second, and I'd like to pass this tonight and get on with preparing for the elections and letting people know what the clear boundaries are. Thank you.
Do we have a second on that amendment?
Well, I'll second for discussion.
Supervisor Stagliano. Okay, on the amendment, discussion?
I think we got discussion going.
Yeah, on the
Discussion
amendment.
started 10 minutes ago, and it's a minute.
I had Supervisor Strebe next, but I believe he wanted to discuss the resolution and not the amendment.
I don't think it,
So, do we have discussion on the amendment?
yeah, then I guess I might as well. Save it. What we have before us is the original map, the original description. And we all know that we can't obviously approve it with 3 people being in one election district. you know, and run a whole election for 3 people. And that's a problem. So there are a few issues. So then the question gets to be is an amendment that's being offered up. And I have no way of verifying that the amendment that is up is indeed accurate. So I have a problem with that one. I definitely can't go to the 1800 because that's if you can do 1800, then you can open it up to the western end of the county and start changing boundary lines wherever we want to go. So I think that the question is, you either stick with the first one, which you know has an issue, or there's a second one, but we can't verify it. So we need to have some way for verification, I think.
Send it back to committee.
Are you done, Supervisor Stagliano?
Yeah, thank you, Chair.
Okay, I've got Supervisor Chiara and then Supervisor Quackenbush.
I have a couple of questions. Could I ask Mr. Smith? How many models did you come up with?
I'd say 5.
Okay, turn up lower.
5.
5. And how was this decision made on the one that actually had, I don't know, they're saying 1,800, I don't know how many it was. How did you come up with that?
The final decision was that when we got done and we looked at the districts, you know, how they balanced out, that was by accident.
By accident.
That we came up, that we made the moves and it was, you know, we put all the numbers in and the districts came to where they were. We said, I think we just hit, you know, we hit on the right change.
But as Supervisor Stagliano points out, could you have changed it in another mode?
Yeah.
So you could have. So out there, so if somebody wanted to look, we could see the 5 various scenarios that you had. It's available.
Yes.
And could you have presented that to us maybe before so we could have all looked at it?
It's available at the office, yes.
But what's the one are we dealing with? We were given a map. And I looked at the map and I went over my area and I actually read the description of mine, which doesn't, whichever, because they moved a few in from Broadway, et cetera, but it's not on the docket. When you get that quick and you're looking at it, I'm not familiar that much with some of the roads in the towns and all that other stuff, but I am familiar with the city, having done it for years. And I saw that there was a major movement. It looked like it was what we consider the town of Amsterdam. And I wondered how it got there. It's just a question, about accusing anybody. I don't want to do that. It's absurd. The thing is, I would think at the same time you would have probably looked at something in other areas of the county. Which you just said you have, I don't know where your other 4 models
Right.
are.
The models, the different ways that we looked at it was because of different, you know, the sizes of some of the areas that that we felt were really kind of small for an election district.
Now when you say we, who's we?
The board.
Who's
The board.
we? What board?
The Board of Elections, basically the staff.
But when I saw the letter, I didn't see Mr. Duchesse's name anywhere. Was he ill or something? He wasn't involved in this?
Which letter?
There was something which I think it just had your name on that said that you had come up with some of the changes.
You're referring to the email that
Whatever.
Doug Green sent out.
Yeah.
That him and I worked together, so
Okay.
because our staff was so busy, we just, you know, I was just working directly with him. But that was after the board, his Jamie Duchesse, deputy, and I were working on the maps in different areas. But we just simply looked at areas that we thought would be a problem for setting up the election districts down the road. And, you know, and then we would make some changes, and sometimes those changes affected another legislative district because of the change.
So if I could ask one more question, I know people want to talk. Did you put your stamp of approval on the one that was sent out? Is that your official stamp? This is this is it?
That's the one that we felt was the best change for the.
So that's what you're saying. All right, it's on the record.
Are you done, Supervisor Chiara?
Yes.
Okay, I've got Supervisor Quackenbush, Supervisor Wheeler, did you have your hand up?
I did, I'm going next.
You're after Supervisor Clark.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
That's it. I don't want to say over what Supervisor Stagliano said because I agree with all of that. But I go back to some of the things that I heard tonight earlier in regards to this amendment, this resolution, everything to do with it. Commission members are here tonight. We thanked them before for the job they've done. I've said this before and I'll say it again. We didn't commission or ask them, nor did the charter, to make any maps. That's our job. It's a job that the people of this county voted for us to do. We're neglecting to do that by not doing it. This board is responsible to bring in whatever people advice they need to get to that end. Just like it is to create the salaries, just like it is today and as it will be 10 years from now. That is what the people of this county voted for. Don't take that away from them. I hear this word gerrymandering. I don't know if half the people understand what it means. Gerrymandering isn't positioning whether or not I'll have an opponent, or Ron Barone, or Butch Greco, or Dominic Stagliano, or anybody else. What it means is you take a section of voters and move that section of voters and maybe disenfranchise them. Put them into another area and block them. It has nothing to do with creating anything for me. We were challenged by the people of this county. They knew in November when they voted that we would have to start work in January 1 if that passed. And what they challenged us to do was create legislative maps, not the commission. They challenged us to create the salaries. We're starting to get there now because we're understanding what our job was. At the last meeting, we asked the election board to get involved, Mr. Duchessis and Mr. Smith. They were both here. Right or wrong? Okay. We asked the election board to get involved, whether it's here or not. We asked them to get involved and help us because we need that help and that input. And maybe there's some others out there besides Doug and besides them, but that is our job. We're failing to do our job as supervisors. That's what we were challenged to do. No matter who runs, who doesn't run. Now, last night I heard I was accused of setting up this whole thing with you, Terrence, and I apologize for ever getting you involved or wanting you to get involved last month because you've been crucified over the last week by people in this room, and it's unfortunate. I never asked Terrence Smith to jockey anything around for Ron Barone or Butch Greco. I have said it's unfortunate the way that the maps were created in the western end of the county. I'll take responsibility for that. Ryan Sweet and I both said that, not just because we're going to primary each other the way that it sets, but there's a big horseshoe around Minden. There's a big horseshoe around the river of the Mohawk where Supervisor Stagliano now has nobody here opposing him. Nobody. No sitting supervisor will oppose him if he wants to run for that. Not saying that he's going to run. But, let's see. Which party's that? Democrat. Oh, what's gerrymandering mean? I see where it's going. I mean, I'm frustrated over it because we're taking our job and shoving it over to other people. And that's not what we should be doing. Right now, we're at a perfect point. I know it didn't get tabled. But we're at a perfect point, Chair, for you to lead this county, ask for this board to create the committee that we were supposed to and probably should have done. Challenge the people to help us that need to be challenged. The charter committee did a great job. Their job is over. The job is over. That's what the people in this county voted for, and I hope they're not being fooled. I can't support, I could have supported what Terrence proposed only because I opened my mouth and said get them involved because they needed to be involved from the beginning. That didn't happen. I agree with Dominic when he says if you can move this, well, what happened to the western end of the county? Didn't happen there. We still got this big horseshoe. The only thing we're missing is the pin to hook it on. So I can't support any of it. Furthermore, we went out to the people a month ago and we asked the people We told them, we invited them to a public hearing tonight to discuss. And not a lot of people showed up, but you know what? What we're discussing has nothing to do with what was presented to them. We need to do our job. Thank you.
Supervisor Wheeler.
Thank you. I agree with you, Chairman Dominic, and Supervisor Quackenbush. I commended the entire time the commission for doing this, but it is our responsibility. I can't support this because I don't know exactly what it is. I think there is a credibility when members of the Charter Commission go on and accuse sitting supervisors. There's a weight there, and that's a shame and it's unfortunate. But I spoke with Butch Grieco, and he's not in favor of any of this. I do think it's our responsibility. I would favor any exploration, and I'm concerned about the constituents, not exactly everybody who's going to run for it, but the people that we represent, the taxpayers. So, in all honesty, that's who I'm here and who elected me here. So, thank you.
Welcome. Supervisor Sweet.
Thank you, Chair. What looked like was going to be a fairly simple task is turning into quite a mess. I agree, the changes that have been made and what I have in front of me, I still really can't figure out completely. So at this point, I really can't support what's here. Terry, are you familiar with Mr. Stark's amendment with the 116 people being moved compared to what your recommendation is? Are you familiar with that at all?
I tried to look at it with the maps that originally were out there, and so I am pretty much, yes.
Would moving those 116 people do similarly the same thing that you were proposing to do?
To a small extent. One of the wards actually would still have 4, maybe 5 districts in it, election districts.
So you think that it would be more cost prohibitive to do it that way than what you're suggesting to do that? I mean, as far as adding districts or...
What we tried to do is each ward, which is where we focused most of the changes on, was that each ward has less than 2,200 voters, approximately. There's one ward that has more than that. And if we were to maximize the election law with the number of voters in each election district, that we could reduce the election districts in each one of the wards by half. That's the only problem that I found with Mr. Stark's proposal was that wasn't the case because I think it was the second ward would still have a large number of election districts in it. Not saying that the board would maximize the election law because we also need to consider the convenience of the voters themselves, as you well know.
Absolutely.